Super excited to take it, guys. I've got Netta, and instead of a formal introduction, I want you, if you don't mind, Netta, to share the turning point when you realized true leadership is about awakening inner strength rather than chasing like so many people with these titles and external accolades.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, thanks for having me first off, Jason, on the podcast. So I have a lot of stories to tell you the truth, but let me take it back to the first story that I can remember that I did my TED Talk on, and I also write about it in my book, is really understanding what leadership looks like and how important it is for you as an individual to have the self-awareness and capacity to even be able to like lead anybody else. And it goes all the way back to when I was 19 years old. So I actually used to be a performer, Jason. I used to tour internationally around the world and do musical theater and singing and dancing. And I remember one time I was invited to, with a cast of about like 30, to perform at a mansion in Malibu. So I'm super excited. I got casted to do the show. I'm driving up Malibu, getting ready, practicing my songs. And then I get there. And if you know anything about performing, you walk your show. So even though you've done the show 1,000 times, every space is different dimensions, different microphones. So you have to like kind of walk your show before you actually perform it. And I remember we were walking our show and the director just stopped everything and started screaming. And there was a young man that was in the middle of the stage and she said, "Stop, where are your shoes?" And this young man wasn't wearing shoes and he was like one of the main dancers. So he said, I forgot on my clothes, which, as you know, is like, you're a performer, you forgot your shoes, you're in tap dancing, like that's a big no-no. So she continued to reprimand him on stage and said, "If you don't find your shoes or if you don't get shoes in the next hour, we're going to cut you from the show." Now, I knew, and the rest of the cast knew, that if she cut him from the show, it was going to put more stress and strain on us as a team because we would need to fill that hole. That means that we would all need to change our positions. Some of us would have to relearn choreography. Like we would have to basically start over in a short amount of time. And so we went to the green room. We took a break. I remember walking into the green room and I'm like getting my makeup on and getting ready. And the CEO of the company walked into the green room and I became a kid at a candy shop. I'm like, what's about to happen? He's going to get like completely destroyed. You know, I was immature back then. And the CEO walks up to the young man. He puts his hand on his shoulders. He bends down. He takes his shoes off. He gives them to the young man to perform in. And for the next 4 hours, he walked around barefoot with the rest of the CEOs at the Malibu mansion. And that changed my life. Like I ended up being with that organization for 15 years in some way, shape, or form, whether it was full-time, volunteering, whatever it was. I stayed with them for 15 years. I'm getting married in a month and a half. They're coming to my wedding after like 20 years of knowing them. And my whole lens of leadership shifted on that day because it was one simple sign or behavior that showed me that like, this is not about you. And that's where that self-awareness comes into, right? It's like being able to shed the ego away from being the leader and recognizing that there's a bigger picture. And sometimes as leaders, and I've been caught in this trap before, where I make it about me. Well, I'm the boss and I said this, and this is how we do things. And it clouds our ability to have empathy and to see like, what do we need to do to help serve the big picture of like what's happening in that moment. And that really changed my life forever. And that's kind of what I go back to. And you know what the most interesting thing about that, Jason, is? Till this day, the CEO, his name is Bill, does not remember doing that. Like totally
That's just his natural act. Yeah.
Right? Exactly. Like changed my life on leadership, got me to, where I am today. And he's like, "Oh, I did that?" I'm like, "Yeah." He had no recollection.
That's awesome. And